Kamran Bokhari, Director of Analytical Development at the Newlines Institute for Strategy and Policy. Kamran, thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Hi, Angie. Thanks for having me.
Your thoughts here. Things have escalated quite quickly, I would say, perhaps in the last 48 hours. At one point, we were talking about the concerns of Kabul being taken over, thinking that perhaps that might be days, even weeks away. But here we are, they're right there. Your thoughts on what we're seeing here in Afghanistan?
I think that the unwillingness on the part of Afghan security forces and the low morale among their political masters as well has snowballed to the point where within 1 week we saw the Taliban take pretty much all major cities, and today they are knocking on the doorsteps of Kabul. And quite frankly, I didn't have much faith in the Afghan government to be able to hold together. But I was more thinking, months, perhaps a year or two. But this thing happened, and that's with stunning speed. And so that is the surprising element. But that the Kabul government is crumbling or was weak or, did not have the ability to defend itself, that's something that most of us were well aware of.
Could this have been prevented? As you mentioned there, a great deal of concern, a failure, if you say, on the government's part here on the Afghan security. Could this have been prevented? And I want to bring the international element into it as well. With the United States, we know that Joe Biden is now bringing in more troops now to evacuate people, but we also know that this was during a time with withdrawal on both U.S. and Canadian troops.
So 3 elements basically allowed for the die to be cast a long time ago. Number 1 was the way in which the U.S.-led international coalition managed this country while trying to build the Afghan state. It was done really poorly, and it was done in a way where a lot of assumptions were made. So that really, became an enabler for the Taliban to grow back into a large-scale insurgency. Number 2 is that the Afghan government was a little more than a collection. Well, let me rephrase that and say, well, the Afghan political elite was a little more than a collection of local and provincial warlords who overnight in the early 2000s became national figures, and they didn't have the ability, the capacity to absorb the international assistance to establish a state that was, decently robust. And number 3 is that the Taliban enjoyed a large sanctuary in Pakistan next door. All 3 of these factors together produced today the outcome that we're now experiencing.
Afghanistan, over the decades, over the last couple of decades or so, or decade and a half, has been, within the people, have been trying to rebuild itself. There has been a rise up from the younger generation, those activists, and I know that you know what I'm talking about here, that have been working towards rebuilding a country that is going to give them the future and the opportunities. We're seeing women in leadership roles here. What is the concern now? Those gains that have been made, we know that women and girls will be the target here. What is the concern in terms of those gains that had been made, and I'm saying had, will be pulled back generations perhaps, where that rebuilding is going to take an extremely long period of time, or maybe not at all?
Yes, that is the biggest concern, and I think you put it right that that's the only gain that came out of the 20-year effort to build a new state, a modern state in which Afghans had a chance for a better life. And that's the civil society that was developed. The state remained very weak. We're seeing how weak it was given the blitz that the Taliban engaged in and rapidly took over, and the government collapsed. But the civil society is the one that was developed, is the one that really produced results, and there were gains made. Now, the question is, what is to become of those gains? Obviously, they face a serious arrestor in the form of a Taliban-dominated government in the future. But I think that the people who gained freedoms and the ability to express themselves and the ability to chart their own future are not going to just go quietly into the night. Lots of people will become refugees, but the Taliban also understand that conquering the country is one thing, but dealing with the issue of governance and the demands of a much more politically aware public is going to be a problem for them, and they can't kill their way, they can't suppress their way out of this. So I think that that's where I'm pinning my hopes, that these people will resist to the extent that they can. And it's our duty as the international community to make sure that they do have the support that they need, even though we're no longer there militarily.
Right.
And we're going to have to hold the Taliban feet to the fire, because at the end of the day, they want international financial assistance. And we're going to have to make it clear to them that they're not going to get that if they don't, if they try to tamper with civil society and the people's freedoms.
A very critical and volatile issue and a situation, certainly indeed, but I think that's right now, as you point out, Kamran, focusing now as well as what we're seeing in Afghanistan, but also focusing on what that international effort is going to be, so that we're not looking at a country that's going to be completely collapsed under Taliban rule. And we'll continue to follow, of course, developments and be speaking with you again as we do so. Kamran, thank you so much for giving us your time today, as always.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.